All right, good afternoon. I'm Mark Henry. I'm the Galveston County judge. About 30 minutes ago, I signed a disaster declaration as a direct result of the crisis at the border. I don't think anyone here is surprised by the fact that there's a crisis at the border. I think y'all all covered it very well. The impacts to our county, back up, I've heard from other parts of the state about how bad it is. I have not personally been there myself. As a result of the crisis at the border, we have seen a number of things in Galveston County now. We have seen an increase in violent and organized crime. We had a federal task force down here a few weeks ago serving warrants. We have seen an increased flow of drugs. We have had drugs wash up on the beach in Galveston County. I was just told that that did not happen at all in 2020. That's a relatively new kind of event. And finally, we have been told about the stash houses for human trafficking that have been raided just a few miles across the border. So I know that the people who run these operations don't care where the county line is. We consider this to be a regional public health crisis for at least these three reasons, in addition to the fact that the immigrants coming across illegally who are not caught and screened, we have no idea what their health condition is. So of course COVID-19 is on everyone's mind, but from some of the countries of origin, I understand that tuberculosis, measles, other formerly eradicated diseases are also an issue. So we just don't have any idea, and we know they're not stopping there, they're continuing their migration north. So as a result of what we have seen already in Galveston County, I issued the disaster declaration this afternoon. In addition to the disaster declaration, I issued an executive order. The executive order will do three things. First, it will approve ARPA funding to send our law enforcement down to assist with the border crisis. This is a call that's been made by not only border counties, but by the governor himself. And I'm here with representatives of Galveston County Sheriff's Department and Galveston County Constables Precinct 1, 2, and 4. These gentlemen have all agreed to assist as best they can in providing the support and resources that we may be able to provide to the state. Secondly, once there's a coherent plan for a border wall, I'm dedicating up to 10% of Galveston County's ARPA funds, which would be a total of $6.6 million to border wall construction. But again, only once there's a coherent, logical, and executable plan. Finally, with the help of the gentleman behind me, we are creating a task force. That task force will start today. Actually, it started last week coordinating with DPS, but it'll start today in earnest, coordinating with DPS on exactly how they can be helpful to the situation at the border, how they can either support or how they can provide kind of assistance of a law enforcement nature that is really out of my hands. I can only provide the disaster declaration, the executive order, and the moral support for them to go down and help what they can on the border. So with that, I want to say that this is a crisis that impacts all of Texas. It's not just Galveston County. Of course, my main focus is Galveston County, but I call on every other city and county in the state of Texas. You're all going to feel the effects of this if nothing is done and done quickly. So I call on other counties and cities to do what they can to assist what we have started here in trying to identify this as a state crisis, do what we can at the state level and county level and city level to get a handle on it. I'm not taking questions. Thank you.
Not taking questions?
Nope.
What exactly is the money going to be
Montgomery
spent on,
County
Judge?
going to be here?
Constable, you were here obviously for the announcement for from Galveston County Judge Mark Henry. Why have your office participate in this? What drew you to make sure your office could also be part of this task force that's set up?
Well, our office is, of course, law enforcement, and being that we're in Galveston County, we will ensure the safety and security of our county, health-wise, as well as the risks that are coming from the border issues we're experiencing.
Particularly, your precinct gets an area, unincorporated parts of the county further up, but not as much as other areas. What are you seeing within your precinct that would lead you to believe that there's a problem here that would require some efforts down there on your office's behalf?
Well, our office is less unincorporated than anywhere else in the country. We have a very small portion that's incorporated right now. As far as what we're seeing, that goal, increase in violent crime, increase in drugs that are being found on the street. So we're seeing it as a fallout from this. There's more coming into the country. There's availability here.
Is that tied to illegal immigration, this increase you're saying? Or because whereas we look at the shootings that are happening and like this is pretty much local, so I just want to get kind of a perspective from you.
Well, as far as illegal immigration,
yeah.
Well, there's more than just illegal immigration going on with the border. There's drug trafficking and everything else. So this localized crime, where you say it's a local residence, those drugs come from somewhere. They're not being manufactured that hard here, so they're coming across the border.
How about the efforts in your own precinct? What, I mean, how do you see what type of personnel you're gonna send here? I know this has just gotten announced, but what type, how much of your resources, physical resources, are you able to spare for this?
Right now, we're still working on planning for that. Once we have a more solid answer, we can come back and give you that information. But for now, our offices are going to work together approach to scheduling and staffing.
What are some of the other areas on the local side of things that you'd be looking at? Because that was, from reading the order here, is that you, part of this task force is you're going to be identifying something locally, maybe as well could be applied. What do you see that as on that effort there?
Right now, with our deputies that are out in the field every day, they're able to recognize when there's increase in crime or increase in some sort of traffic in an area where we can work with the local agencies, again, mostly incorporated, so we're working with Friends with League City and Dickinson to apply additional resources to those areas and make that area safer. So it's not just the border, it's not just here, it's a combination of the approach.
And because you got so much incorporated in the in your precinct, have you talked to the chiefs? Have you talked to the city leaders, Friends with League City particularly? Is this something they want to be a part of as well?
Again, brand new, so we're going to be working with the local law enforcement agencies and get more information to them, work together with them.
Constable, let me ask, why take part in this yourself? Why do you see it? You do have a large, unlike Constable West, you have a larger area that's unincorporated also in your precinct, but why take a part in this?
That's for a public safety issue, for the safety of our residents here in Galveston County. As Constable West said earlier, you know, this stuff is coming across the border and it's slowly bringing its way down to Galveston County, and we need to address it now.
And what particularly can you tell folks to say, all right, these funds are coming in, obviously you don't have a say, in the actual emergency declaration, but that say, all right, these funds are coming in, should be spent on local initiatives. What do you say to that?
They ought to, well, this is basically a local initiative. We're going down there combating it before it can actually get down here. And that's the way I feel about it. So I am more than willing to dedicate some of my staff to send them to the border to assist DPS and answer the governor's call to help out.
You were one of the louder voices when Commissioner's Court had cut back on the number of constable and JP precincts here, particularly worried about staffing and the like. How's that not a concern now with this initiative? Are you staffing shortages, or
No, we're adequately staffed in my office, and I have the adequate number of reserves, which I've already taken the initiative prior to this, taking the initiative to contact my reserve deputies, who I will be bringing in to fill the gaps while my full-time deputies are down on the border.
So in this case, you don't foresee a problem with local manpower, lack of a better term, being hurt by this effort?
Absolutely not.
All right, so you don't see it.
I cannot speak for the sheriff's office, but I can speak for myself, my office. We have the adequate number of reserves that the commissioner has allocated for us to stay behind, actually hold court, actually go out and serve the civil process that needs to be served.
A lot of folks will see the politics in this as well on that. Let me just give you a chance to address that. You've run many a campaign, so you know that almost everything anyone who's in elected office says can be part of that. For those that would excuse that this is just some political maneuver, looking down the line for your participation, what do you say to that?
I tell them to go down to the border and take a look for themselves at the little girls being raped, the kids being sodomized, and the drugs that are coming across, and the gangsters that are coming across, and the number of violent killings that are taking place in these border towns. And then ask me again if that's political.
Before this announcement today, had you gone down and seen this at the border yourself?
I have not been down to the border. I've spoken to several DPS troopers from Galveston County that have been down there, and they've told me exactly what's going on.
What is there anything locally that, because that's an interesting thing that they get talked about here, but that there may be initiatives. I brought up mentioning about the port in Galveston, for example, where issues may come up. So, but is there something along the lines that you'll be able to implement some manpower on the local level to assist with this effort that maybe haven't been identified yet, but you think that you may look into some more? Well,
now that this has come out and we've had the emergency declaration, this is the time to start having conversation with our local police chiefs, and the city marshal's offices, and we start coming up with a plan to address some of these issues. I don't know if you're aware, if you go to some of these day labor camps that are around Galveston County, the numbers have increased. I was just telling the county judge and the constables, about the one in Galveston. It increased from anywhere from about 10 to 15 a day. It's up to about 40 to 60 a day now. Now, does that relate to probably border crossings? I have no idea, but it certainly looks like there's a correlation here.
And where is that location at that you're talking about?
That's in Galveston, the Home Depot in
The
Galveston.
Home Depot. in
Yes,
Galveston.
sir.
Obviously, that's kind of the construction areas where.
Correct.
Like that. Have you been able to identify, since you're, forgive me for not remembering that your precinct goes down to the island, have you been able to identify within, say, that population alone, outside of some folks probably here legally, that there's criminal elements within that?
I have not, no, sir.
Okay, so I wanted, since you had brought it up, just want to make sure it's clarified here, is that, and how much have you seen crime-wise or anything you've had to back up on or be a part of in your precinct or elsewhere in the county that you could relate to this particular border crisis issue?
There's been quite a bit. I mean, because I cover 7 different cities that are in my precinct. And when we back up these officers on these traffic stops and see the dope that's being taken out of some of these cars, some of the violent crimes that have been committed, especially in part of my precinct in West Texas City and Lamarck, there's definitely a correlation here. And I think it all relates back to the drug industry.
And speaking, you brought up West Texas and Lamarck. Since
Yes,
you
sir.
over there. There is a full-out gang war going on. That's lack of a better term there. And do you think this effort can also morph into spending some resources? I know the sheriff's bringing back the organized crime task force.
That is
to be able
correct.
to work. Do you think that this can roll into that too, where it's a more localized effort versus a border effort?
Right. I think once we go and combat what we need to do down on the border, and we can also coordinate our efforts here locally to combat the gang problems like we did back in the mid-90s when I was over at the school district in Galveston.
So is it a priority that first, this second, or simultaneous?
I think we need to cut the snake's head off where it's down there and then work our way back this way. We have local law enforcement, the local municipalities, they're combating these problems right now. Once we completed our job down there, we'll come on back here and we'll assist them.
You don't think they need your assistance now?
Huh?
They don't need your assistance
Well,
now?
we hadn't met yet, but right now, they hadn't called out to us. They hadn't reached out to us for our assistance. But we will definitely offer that assistance to them.